When I say Enclave, you probably imagine the Nazi army of Fallout 2, serving as the main antagonist of Fallout 3, and a recruitable faction in Fallout New Vegas. But I'm not talking about them. I'm instead talking about a hack and slash from my youth released on the original Xbox in 2002. What made Enclave unique in the early 2000s was its Dark campaign, where the player dons the role of the antagonistic Outlanders. There is no dedicated wiki to this lost diamond of a game, or at least one I could find by the time I wrote this script, so I want to do my best to record and document the setting, history, and gameplay of my favorite childhood game. First off, the original Enclave from 2002 is available for purchase on Steam and GOG, and works semi-fine on modern devices. I only have experience with the Steam version so far, but I do have some advice that should help regardless. If you experience a lot of crashing, open Task Manager, go to the Details tab, right-click Enclave, and hit Set Affinity. Now set the game to only use one processor, and you should be good to go. This is easiest to do if you play in a window, as constantly tabbing out of the game can mess with the lighting. If you don't like playing games in bordered windows, my best advice as an Enclave veteran is to suck it up and do it anyway. You'll save yourself a lot more headache if you do. If you want to play on a modern console, Enclave HD was released for PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, and PlayStation 5, made by Ziggurat Games, who at first I believed were responsible for the new game arts and wallpapers, but the new art is actually from a 2012 re-release of the game under Topware Interactive called Enclave: Shadows of Twilight. It was released for the Nintendo Wii, and I never heard of it until writing the script. I sure would have liked to have gotten my hands on it when it came out 12 years ago, but I would have been 13 at the time and have no way of knowing. A shame, but it is what it is. Now, I haven't played Enclave HD myself, but I have heard secondhand that it doesn't run well, so consider yourself warned. To start, the main lore is that two factions vie for dominance in a healing land once torn asunder. The Goodly Enclave, a religious monarchy made up of men, elves, halflings, and gnomes, and the vile Dregatar, a barbaric cult of demon worshippers made up of goblins, orcs, ogres, and undead. No one side is entirely perfect. There's a surprising amount of nuance to both the Light campaign and the Dark campaign. The very start of the game has you jailed by your fellow Enclavers for assaulting a taxman that came to your village, and the second level of the Dark campaign has you rescue an ogre about to be executed. Both sides are capable of cruelty and camaraderie, while at the same time being distinctly good and evil. It feels good to play because of this, whether you're fighting off the actual armies of hell or assassinating a queen. Now that I've intrigued you, let's talk about dwarves. If you play through the Light campaign, you'll rescue and subsequently unlock the Engineer. He's found in level 6, Outland Wastes, and not much info is given about the area in the pre-level summary, only a mention of the Dregatar, and a warning of the lava giant Durzu, resident gimmick boss. Immediately, you might think he must be a dwarf, especially since the Dwarven Axe and Dwarven Crossbow weapons have already been unlocked at this point, or he's a male version of the Halfling hero you unlock in level 5 Divided City. But if you crack open page 12 of the manual, you'll see the Engineer hero belongs to the Gnome race, and if you read the manual further, you'll find the dwarves are not mentioned a single time. I'm sure an immediate thought is that it's an old game. There's even a few spelling errors like ethereal bow when it should be ethereal, so maybe they meant dwarf every time they said gnome. But that actually isn't the case, because in the Dark campaign, we actually go into dwarven mines. The dwarven sword says, "This blade was smithed deep in the Ungard mines before the rift," and that's an actual level you play in the Dark campaign. The place is run down, abandoned, and only fresh Enclavers are here to keep the Dregatar away. Gnomes, elves, men? No dwarves to be seen, though. Another piece of lore is the repeating crossbow being the peak of gnome creativity. This crossbow can fire rapid bursts of bolts, which is something shared by the dwarven crossbow, a weapon that holds 2 bolts with every reload. Going back to the manual, it says the gnomes are the craftsmen, workers, and engineers of the population, unmatched in their skill and handwork. And this holds true in the Dark campaign, as in level 10, the Great Wall, we can see a working smithy that's run by gnome crafters. But what about the dwarves? In level 11 of the Dark campaign, Ungard Mines, this is where our most important bit of lore is. In the pre-level summary, they're called the Old Mines, and the last dwarf lore we get is that they're deserted. The only other info we have is that the world map calls it the Mines of Ungard, so we know they're named after a person, likely a dwarf named Ungard. So let's summarize what we know. Zale splits the land and makes the rift, one we can see in Ungard mines, and both knights and paladins of the Enclave use dwarven swords. These swords were forged in those old mines, and must have been in plentiful enough supply and quality to arm all of Selenheim, considering the dwarves are long vanished and the swords are very much in use. Where they went is speculation at best. It isn't mentioned if they died out in the battles, if the rift's creation destroyed their civilization, or if they simply retreated deeper underground. The rift has also existed for so long that no one, even the elves, remember a time it hasn't existed. Only in the port city of Mechalon, for several hundreds of years, does an ancient tome describe the forming of the rift, the origin of the Dragatar, and the Enclave building the city of Selenheim. This means if the rift did destroy the dwarves, very few people would still be alive that would even know what they looked like, as there are no statues in the mines of Ungard, and the dwarves are not depicted a single time in Enclave's concept art. Now, this might seem a little lackluster to end it here, but there isn't much more to say. Enclave 2 was announced in March 2003. A young ancestor sorcerer named Erlander would try to prevent a magical tome, the Light Book, from falling into the hands of the evil sorceress Kalia, who planned to seize all magic for herself and become all-powerful. It was cancelled within the year, and only thanks to Unseen64.net was I able to find these two screenshots of Enclave 2's concept art. If I had to guess, the city shown would be Selenheim. As in regular Enclave, we never see the city itself, we only see Castle Selenheim. The second tiny screenshot I'm not so sure of, but I'm semi-confident in saying it's a redesign of the assassin hero, since the armor and skin color matches, and I think she's holding a bow. I think. I can't exactly tell, and this is the best picture I can find. Maybe in Enclave 2, the dwarves would have returned. Maybe in Mechalon's libraries, we would have at least learned what happened to them. What we do know is Starbreeze Studios doesn't own the IP anymore. I think Topware Interactive does, and I do mean think, as if I remember right, Ziggurat Interactive explained that they couldn't get the rights to the PC release of Enclave specifically. That's why there's no Enclave HD on Steam, and it's only on consoles. I don't know who owns what of my childhood game anymore. Maybe we'll see a sequel in the future if a sudden hype for the game rises. But after 22 years, I wouldn't hold my breath. That's all. Go away.